Thank you. Good evening, everyone. This is the Board of Directors regular meeting. Today is Thursday, September 24th, 6 p.m. This meeting is being held remotely via Zoom. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Ms. Pania, can you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Director Gould.
Still here.
Okay, wonderful. Director Orzali.
Here.
Director Wood.
Here.
Director Kelly.
Here.
Director Sailors.
Here.
Director Clark.
Muted, Delman.
I saw you on there, Director Clark. Can you say one more time if you're here?
He's muted.
Oh. Director Clark, you're still muted. Director Jones, you're here.
Here.
And Director White, just want to check, you have not joined us, correct? Director White was coming back from deployment today, so he was probably not going to be joining us. Director Clark, one more time, are you here? Okay, we can go ahead and get started. We have a quorum.
Okay, perfect. All right, at this time, this is the Metro Cable announcement. The open session meeting is videotaped for cablecast on Metro Cable 14, replay on Monday, September 28th at 6 p.m. and Wednesday, September 30th at 2 p.m. on Channel 14. Webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. It is now the public's opportunity to discuss matters of public interest within the district's jurisdiction, including items on or not on the agenda. Are there any speakers, Madam Clerk?
Nobody had emailed me beforehand, but Art, if you could please unmute all of our participants and give them the option.
Doing so right now. Hello, participants. You have the ability to unmute yourself if there's anything you'd like to say at this point. No response.
Okay, Madam Clerk, I just contacted Director Clark by phone, and he is in the process of coming back to audio.
I'm here.
Hey, Director Clark. Welcome.
Sorry I missed you.
Nope, no problem.
Thank you, Gabe, for calling me. Appreciate that.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Director. And welcome, Director.
Welcome, yes.
Thank you.
Moving on to the consent items, are there any questions?
Madam Chair, I'd move the consent calendar.
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Can you please call the roll?
Director Gould.
Aye.
Orzali.
Aye.
Wood.
Aye.
Kelly.
Aye.
Sailors.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
And Sheets.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, moving on to our first action item, fiscal year 2019 Fire Prevention and Safety Grant Award Acceptance. Ms. Castleberry, Administrative Specialist.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you again for having me tonight. Tonight we bring to the board a grant award that we recently received. We submitted an application for fiscal year 2019 AFG Fire Prevention and Safety Award in the amount of $262,418 in order to conduct a comprehensive community risk assessment. And the goal of this risk assessment basically is to identify risks and hazards within the district and any mitigation measures that can be used for developing a comprehensive community risk reduction plan. So the proposed project will actually serve as the basis for Metro Fire's long and short range planning for risk reduction goals and activities. We did receive an award notice on September 2nd in the amount of $261,518. There was a small item, $900, that was not approved as part of the award. That will not impact the district's ability to complete the project. So tonight we're asking for your adoption of the presented resolutions to accept the grant and also to make the requested budget amendments to include these in the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget.
Thank you, Ms. Castleberry. Are there any questions from the board members?
Madam Chair, I'd go ahead and move we adopt staff's recommendation and amend the budget accordingly.
I'll second that with a great deal of thanks to all the staff work to get this grant done. Thank you.
Wonderful. We have a first and a second. Can you please call the roll?
Director Gould,
Aye.
Barzali,
Aye.
Wood,
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
Sailors,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
and Sheets.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, moving on to the second action item. Make sure I'm not on mute. 10-year Sacramento Regional Radio Communication System Licensing Agreement. Mr. Steve Jordan, Communications Manager.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me on. Chief Harms, President, Directors. I'm going to share my screen to show you a presentation at this time. Okay, so I come before you today seeking approval for a licensing agreement with the Sacramento Regional Radio Communications System, otherwise known as SRRCS. So with this presentation, I'll go over a little bit of the background and then the licensing agreement itself to include SRRCS responsibilities, Metro Fire responsibilities, fiscal impact, and then staff recommendations.
Steve, sorry, 1 second. Just to let you know, you are in note mode. You may want to change your display settings to show just the PowerPoint presentation.
I apologize.
There you go.
Is that better?
Yep.
Okay, that way you guys can't see all my secret notes there.
Right.
So,
But we can
anyway.
blow it up and see the PowerPoint. Thank you, sir.
Yep, no problem. Apologize for that. So one thing, this for the background, Metro Fire has been a primary user on the SRRCS system since 2005. And one thing to note on this is that this agreement actually covers all agencies on the SRRCS system. It's not specific to Metro Fire. So all agencies had a part in revising this agreement and updating it. So the current agreement was slated to expire on July 1st, 2020. On June 11th, this board approved a resolution to extend the agreement through October 1st, which was the latest the county would extend it, while participating agencies were making recommendations or revisions to it. Once it was complete, we sent it over to John Lauber's office. Thank you, John, for reviewing it. He had some recommendations that we took back to the county. And from that, we weren't sure if we were going to get it back in time to meet the October 1st deadline, but we did. So on September 10th, we had the board approved a second extension through December 1st. However, we did receive a quick response from SRRCS, which allows us to present today, and everything is all in well. So this is a 10-year licensing agreement through July 1st of 2020. Pretty much the terms and conditions stay fairly the same with some minor language changes and updates. But ultimately, this enables Metro Fire to continue as a primary user on the radio system and prevents interruption in any radio communications. So SRRCS responsibilities are to procure, install, and maintain the backbone. And the backbone is the infrastructure of the whole system, part of which is pictured in this slide. They also manage all projects related to the system, maintain operational efficiency, and maintain all records. So Metro Fire responsibilities are we purchase and install our own end user equipment. So this includes radios and accessories that we have installed in our vehicles and at fire stations, including the antennas and the cabling that go along with that equipment. We program our own radios and we pay annual subscription fees to operate on the SRRCS system. But we do get some perks. So we actually have representation and voting rights at for the System Management Group, or SMG, and the Technical Advisory Committee, which are ultimately the committees that govern the radio system. So we also have the ability to implement secondary user agreements. This is designed to enable radio communications with local cooperating agencies who are not on the SRRCS system. So with that, we have one paid agreement with AMR, and that's due to our ambulance service contract that we have with them. And then we use AMR for any subscription fees connected to the radios that they operate. And we also have 4 non-paid agreements with local cooperators. So we have CAL FIRE, the Amador El Dorado unit for 11 radios, Placer County Fire with 18 radios, our Metro Fire CERT team for 8 radios, and then EMSA with up to 30 radios. Now, these nonprofit or non-paid agreements, rather, are important not just for the interoperability aspect, but also the cost savings. We supply the 37 radios for CAL FIRE, Placer County Fire, and for the Metro Fire CERT team. And so because we were able to implement these agreements, we were able to eliminate the subscription fees for those radios, which ended up being a cost savings of a little over $12,000. So for the fiscal impact, Metro Fire will continue to pay subscription fees, and it's based on each active radio that we have on the system. The percentage of active Metro Fire radios to the total radio count on the system, it correlates to our shared cost percentage as well. So for example, for fiscal 21, we have 645 radios, or approximately 4.5% of the total radio count of 14,100 on the system. So our subscription fees of $330 per radio, which equated to a little over, well, 212,850, is approximately 4.5% of the $4.7 million operating budget of SRRCS. So here's a glance at the rates over the past couple of years and a projection going into 2025. So the shaded bar in the middle there is this year, 330. We have a projected rate increase of 2.78 to about 4.76 for the next 3 years through 2024, before leveling off at 370 per radio. These rate increases are due to upgrade projects that are near complete or in the process of getting started, such as the upgrade to P25 to go digital communications with our radios. We have a Motorola system agreement or upgrade agreement, and that's to keep the system active and current with all firmwares and everything. And then we also have tower equipment replacements and everything there too. So with that, staff recommends that this board authorize the fire chief or designee to renew Metro Fire's 10-year primary licensing agreement with the Sacramento Regional Radio Communication System. With that, I will take any questions if you have any.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions from the board members?
Yes, I have one question, if I may.
Sure, go ahead, Director Kelly.
My question was, if there's 14,100 users, is the remainder of the users besides Metro Fire? I would think that we would probably be one of the larger, and I may have missed it, but who's the largest of the radio owners out there?
So there's a few large agencies. So Sac County Sheriffs, they have a little over 3,000 radios on the system.
Gotcha.
The city of Sacramento is a pretty large player as well. So I think we are 4th in line as far as the largest agency on the system anyway.
I knew you had mentioned a couple of other fire agencies. I I had forgotten who the remainder of the users were. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Director. Any other questions from the directors?
Madam President, I'd just like to thank Mr. Jordan for making sure that our communications are far spread, including the Placer County and our CERT team, without an extreme additional cost. I think that was a really important item that helps display Metro's leadership in the region. So thank you, Mr. Jordan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, with no questions or comments, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Madam Chair, I'd move the recommendation.
Second?
Great, perfect. Sounds like we have a first and a second. Can you please call the roll?
Yes, Director Gould,
Aye.
Orzali,
Aye.
Wood,
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
Sailors,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
and Sheets.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, moving on to presentation items, the Natomas feasible study, Mr. Jeff Fry, Economic Development Manager.
Thank you, President Sheets. We're here to present a project we've been working on for quite some time, the Natomas Fire Protection District feasibility study. And as I set up here, I'm going to ask Chief Harms to share some of his opening thoughts.
Thank you, Jeff. Directors, Jeff has put just a ton of work into the Natomas area and the possibility of a feasibility study for us being able to look at that area. I think what is key for what Jeff has put together, and tonight will be somewhat of a brief overview, and as you need additional information, Jeff is more than happy to sit down one-on-one with you. But what I really think is important about it and the investment that we have done in it, and I know there's been a lot of talk in the past, is the ability to sit down at the table with a plan. And having that plan at the very end of it may not look as the same as it is today, but it gives us the opportunity to work, to be able to be transparent, to be able to show the benefits to the district, and also if there's any challenges for us for being able to move forward. Again, I expect as we move forward and we start to share this plan, there will be a number of areas where there'll be give and take along the way. But I think it's so important that the first person to the table has a plan, and then from there we make movement forward, more than just maybe open discussions that have been going on, but no real movement. So thank you tonight for allowing us to bring this forward. Jeff, it's all yours.
Thank you, Chief. And I just want to make sure everybody can see my presentation here. We're all set up?
Yes, sir, we can see it.
Affirmative.
So first, I'm going to apologize in advance. With this presentation, I'm going to give you a 1.5 years worth of data analysis and research in a 20-minute presentation. So apologies, this is going to move fast, very fast, but I hope by the end we'll bring it all together for you. First, a little background into the issue. The Natomas Fire Protection District has long been considered for consolidation with the other Sacramento County fire districts. Now we know as Metro Fire. Moving ahead a little bit, in 2012, one of the proposed project applicants to build a community in the Natomas area approached Metro Fire about being the service provider to that project. Subsequent to that engagement, Metro Fire retained a number of consultants to prepare an analysis, and then that information was used in an application to LAFCO to annex the area. Subsequently, the application was withdrawn because of a number of concerns from other stakeholders or shareholders. And essentially what the issue is, and the concern here is that the County of Sacramento and the City of Sacramento both have contemplated development of the Natomas area. And essentially in the midst of those issues, the issue of fire service and who will provide that service has been left in suspension. So more recently, since Chief Harm's arrival, we have met with that applicant again and continue to have conversations about providing a service. Additionally, we have also met with another group proposing another project in the Natomas area. And lessons learned from previous efforts, we thought it was important to sit with both the county and the city and simply ask the question, who is going to be the urbanizer or the land use planner for the Natomas district? And both expressed intent of doing so. So with that uncertainty, planning for fire and EMS service in the Natomas area is certainly uncertain at this point in time, but has also been in a state of flux over these years. So as Chief summed up in the beginning, our essentially desire for this was to do two things. First, create a feasibility study, a written document that can be referenced by all stakeholders. And then second, to openly and transparently share that information with all the stakeholders to see if we can resolve the issues pertaining to fire service in the Natomas area. So our approach in the feasibility study has been different this time compared to previous efforts. And my objective overall for this study was to format it in a way that would give the most amount of information to the decision makers, you, and try to present it in such a way that you can evaluate the same data sets that we have and come to your own conclusions. And then that would be the basis for conversations and negotiations with all parties involved. So for the remainder of this, I'm going to quickly give you an overview of the feasibility study itself. And on this slide, section 1 focuses on the agencies themselves. I'll bring your attention here to the Natomas Fire Protection District. Specifically, the Enabling Act is the fire district code that we operate under today. And from a technical perspective, that does make the form of cooperation or the annexation a little bit easier. I would also like to point to the governing body of the NFPD, which is the County Board of Supervisors as a dependent special district. They oversee the fire district. And finally, the service provider in the fire district is the city of Sacramento through a contract with the county. And the reason I highlight these points is technically, this is on the easier side of a consolidation. There are no employees in the district. They have few assets. From a negotiation standpoint, there's not a whole lot to talk about other than the political divide that I mentioned earlier. So in section 2, we spent some time talking about and establishing a response time standard. And I think this was very important simply because this step was skipped in previous efforts. And I think it sets the basis for conversations moving forward. And all of that is summarized here. At first, I will bring your attention here to this map, which shows the Natomas Fire Protection District. And we've shaded the boundaries of the district. And what we attempted to do is use the geographical boundaries, such as the freeways and the rivers and creeks, city boundaries, to not only define the whole district, but also service areas, where getting across a freeway might prove difficult in the future, could be a natural dividing line if we are unable to agree to terms about what a full consolidation looks like. Then perhaps we can negotiate for a portion thereof that is not as hotly contested. So we did establish 4 service areas. They're listed there: the Panhandle, east of 99, north of I-5, and south of I-5. We also used and considered service providers in the area. There's quite a few names on this list, but at the end of the day, this really boils down to the city of Sacramento and Metro as adjacent service providers that could easily provide service to the area. I do want to point out here the service island, which is this white, we call the pan. This is within the Natomas Fire Protection District. The city has annexed all the way around it. And this is one of the many issues that we need to resolve through this process. Another data set that we use in consideration is the land use plan for the Natomas Fire Protection District. These are all proposed projects within the area. I would like to point out here Grand Park, which is adjacent to our boundary here. These are one of the landowner groups that have approached us about providing service, and we are in regular communication with. The other group that has approached us about providing service here is the Upper West Side, is this project area here. And they have also submitted an application for development and entitlement with the County of Sacramento. Additionally, what's different in the land use plan that was not considered in previous plans is these areas called conservation areas 1 through 4, and the North Airport Management and South Airport Management areas, which are runway protection zones. These areas are not scheduled for development and will not be developed. So for us, in terms of fire service, that would mean a rural response. And in previous efforts, we just assumed that the entire Natomas Fire Protection District would need an urban response, and therefore we overestimated the amount of stations and apparatus needed moving forward. Additional information that we've used in defining our response are the demographics and economic data. Here you can see some of the factors that we include. The population density is what drives our board standard for service, but there are many other factors here on this area, and we looked at each one of those factors in each one of the service areas to fine-tune our response standard to future development. Also considerations were the CDC's Social Vulnerability Index, which speaks to socioeconomic status and other issues. This information is very important to LAFCO. We also included CAD data and response times and to take a look at what service looks like today and could look like in the future. So from section 2, I present you here our findings. Of particular note is finding number 3, the critical issue that we believe is that the way service is handled today, the city is a service provider. In most of the project area, the county is the urbanizer, which means they're responsible for planning and code compliance. And really what's missing, since we are the county's fire service provider, is the planning effort related to fire and EMS services for the future. And that's one of the main concerns we have moving forward. So moving on to section 3, we focus on service delivery. We established the standard in the previous section, and now we apply it through the board's adopted standards of cover, and then use a number of response time assessments to gauge service today, but also, decades into the future. And that information is summarized in these 2 maps. Here's what service would look like today. You can see the majority of the district is rural and requires a rural response. However, there are 2 areas, the airport and the PAN, which require an urban level of response. Moving forward, things change quite significantly. A majority of the area will require an urban response one day, but please note we will continue to have a rural response to all the conservation areas and the runway protection zones. And then finally, that information is collected and put into a gap analysis where we overlay current station locations to service area and project areas. And then we summarize travel time and deployment times by the standard to each of these areas. And we include this information in tables, and it's summarized there in table 3. And then lower in table 7, we also evaluate the effective force to make sure that the apparatus required for a first alarm or a greater alarm is available. So let me rewind here and say that we go through this iterative process 21 times as we move through stages of service. And then for new stations, we also went through the deployment analysis an additional 15 times to derive a station master plan, which is here before you. I will tell you that while this plan is very good, it's not complete. we do need additional data sources, and this would be continued to be improved and developed as we work with the various stakeholders. So with that, here's a summary of the findings for service delivery. As you can see, there's a lot of planning work that needs to be done, a lot of conversations that need to be had. And these are the issues we tend to address with all the stakeholders. Additional findings from the growth analysis are summarized here. You note that I have struck out the first issue. As of Friday, we had retained this data, and we will be able to include it into the final feasibility study, and that data will be available for all of us to consider. So moving forward to section 4, in a financial review, we've taken all the service that we've established and the future service needed and try to do a baseline review, financial review for the OPEX and CAPEX expenses. But more particularly, in my last few years here working with other project areas, we know that the greatest strain on finances is when service is first needed. When that new station or new engine is needed, that's when revenues available are the lowest, and that is more of an issue than project completion. Typical or previous studies have just analyzed the revenue available at the end when everything is done, and that can put the district in a precarious position. So we are really focusing on the threshold triggers and the revenue available at that time. So I wanted to be able to show you our ability using technology has greatly advanced in the last few years. This is a roll summary of the dollars generated in the service areas we defined in section 2 and the amount of revenue, property tax revenue, that's available in each one of those areas. We are able to summarize all of that data and put it here in the table. And then what I want to point out is that we directly tie the revenue in the area to the service being provided. So you can see here, we note the first new engine and the associated revenue. The big takeaway from this table is the total revenue available to the Natomas Fire Protection District today is $3 million, which is short of Metro Fire's cost to provide service for 2 engines and 2 stations, I should say. But this information is useful in having discussions down the road. So with that revenue data, we then try to apply it to expenses, and we've taken a different approach here. We know that Metro Fire's annual operating cost for an engine is about $2.9 million as of the writing of this study. And we also know from the service study that many of these engines, 3 of the 4 that serve Natomas area, also serve significant portions of the city. So we wanted to take a look at and consider what would service look like if there was a fair share cost here. And we've done that by analyzing a per capital share, if you will. And that's broken out into this table where we take the population in the Natomas area, compare it to the population in the city area of a first new station, then adjust that to a cost, a fair share cost, and then compare that to the revenue available in that area. And the result is summarized here. And as you can see, Station 3, just the nature of the ruralness, there is a significant shortfall in available revenues for that particular station. Moving on, we also include overhead coverage in this analysis, and we allocate a portion of the costs related to a battalion chief and a truck, and then that information is summarized here. So in this methodology and this approach to analyzing the revenues available, today there is a $2.2 million shortfall, and this is, again, a point of conversation and a negotiation with all the stakeholders to try to remedy this issue. I include 2 maps here at the bottom to demonstrate an issue here. When we move Station 3, it will be in Metro Air Park, which is a county development. However, first due will include Greenbrier, which is a city development and both of these are under construction underway today. That's important to note. You know, there's a conversation to be had about how these costs will be shared when delivering service in the Natomas area is so complex. Also included is the response data from the standards of cover. Today, station 43 is the into Greenbrier, and as you can see by the time targets here, you know, they're already missing those time targets due to the location of the freeways. Again, this is just data and information that we can use to further the discussion. When the data is available, we also included an estimated property tax revenue projected by project area. And again, this is information we can use to negotiate with developers and potentially with the county. I use the Metro Air Park here as an analysis where there is $1.2 million of revenue generated in the area today. We know at 25% build out, an additional approximate 737,000 will also be generated from the service study. We know that the relocation of Station 3 would be triggered around 40% of build out, but the revenue isn't sufficient to maintain that service until about 70% of build out. So again, all of this information goes into the conversations that we need to move forward. So here are the findings from the financial review. Again, working through these issues takes time. There's no better way to say it. A lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, a lot of back and forth to find a solution that works for everybody. So finally, in section 5, we summarize all of this for you in a very simple graph here. And there's really 3 factors that contribute to feasibility, and those are listed here. The adjacency, and the adjacency for us is created from the Grand Park project and then extends all the way across the top of the Natomas Fire Protection District to the other areas. Please note that all of these projects I note here are within the county or have been submitted to the county. And we really feel, you know, Metro Fire is the service provider to the county, similar to that the city fire department is the provider to the city. And because of that, we should be a part of these conversations. A lot of the financial feasibility is open to negotiations, which is another driving factor on why we would like to engage sooner rather than later. So the recommendation in the study as it's written today, and as Chief Harms mentioned, this is subject to change. We would propose a full consolidation, and then we would ask to enter into a contract with the city to continue to provide service. And that contract with the city should pass through revenues to support the service being provided, but should address all future issues related to service delivery, including property tax shares, especially for 3 and Station 18, and then potential future annexations if a project application is submitted to the city rather than the county. We feel that this gives us the ability to come in and plan and work with our risk reduction division to complete inspections as projects move forward and solve the financial shortfalls and be able to work with a partner in the city at the same time. So finally, here are the next steps that we feel are appropriate. And I do want to point out a couple of things here. This is a flow chart that I created for the board related to the consolidation strategy a few years ago. And we are essentially here in this step. This preliminary evaluation now has a name. It's called the feasibility study. And the next step that we think a part of this is to go solicit input from all of those agencies or stakeholders. We have a list of what we believe to be those agencies here. You know, we would like to start conversations with them as soon as possible to resolve some of these issues. We prefer to have the finalize the study and have the study in hand as we meet with all these people. And then really the need driving all of this is, I'm going to direct your attention to this last bullet point. The contract between the Natomas Fire Protection District and the city terminates on June 30th of 2021. And that gives us about 9 months to finalize the study engage all these stakeholders, try to find some common ground, and then move a formal recommendation to both our board, Metro Fire's board, and the county's board, and initiate the LAFCO process if we can find some common solution. So, Madam Chair, what I would like to do is turn this back over to you. As Chief mentions, if there's any questions about the feasibility study itself, please wait until the study is finalized and we send it to you. At that time, I'll be more than happy to email or talk on the phone or sit with you and go through it. But for the purposes of tonight, I would ask the board to focus on this slide here. And if there is any comments or questions or direction the board would like to provide to staff as we move forward with engaging these agencies, I think this is the appropriate time.
Thank you, Mr. Fry. No action is necessary. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
Yes, I have one.
Yes, Director Zali, go ahead.
I just wanted to commend Jeff and the staff for this. This is a brilliant report. Truly appreciate the effort.
Thank you, sir.
And Madam President, this is Director Jones. I would like to echo Director Rizal's comments. This is a huge, even though it's the first step, it's a huge in-depth analysis of what's going to be needed for a delivery of emergency services in this humongous area in our county. And I very, very much appreciate that. Now, Jeff, I know you said no particular questions, but here's a quickie little one on the slide that showed the 1.2 something deficit for Station 3. Were those revenues present day or were they based on full build out?
That is today. We do
Thank you.
We do know at the end of full bid out, there will be sufficient revenues to cover those costs. And as I mentioned in the presentation, the secret to all of this is figuring out how to fund that shortfall or how do we address service in the meantime.
Well, again, I greatly appreciate that. And I'm sure my fellow directors would also like to, I'm going to request that that PowerPoint be sent to me. If you could work with Clerk Pania and we'll get that out to, I just have to really appreciate all that work and I want to give it its due diligence. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Matt Kelly, please.
Yes, Director.
I'd like to compliment Jeff on the report as well. And I do remember this being discussed at least for the last 7 to 8 years, I think. But it's nice to see it's coming to a point where we have some concrete figures and information in front of us. Thank you again.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments, questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Fry.
Yep.
All right, moving on to reports. President's report. I have nothing to report. Moving on to the fire chief's report. Chief Harms.
Good evening again, directors. Just a couple follow-ups. Jeff, great job on the presentation. He really has focused. I know as I'm sitting here, I've had enough time with Jeff that it all made a lot of sense as we went through it. I like what Gase or Director Jones said is the ability to send it out and then the ability to sit down with Jeff and look at the numbers and go through them. But like I said in the beginning, I truly believe that we will have a plan and then negotiations, talks, being able to move forward is really built off of that plan. So Jeff, thank you for that portion of it. Steve Jordan tonight, I don't know how many of you caught it, the license agreement 2030. I don't know why, but that seemed like strange that we're talking about signing agreements that will go through 2030 now, which is only 10 years, but it does sounds like a long time out there. And then the last thing, just to kind of go over again, is Aaron went through and talked about a grant. Aaron and the group have just been working just phenomenally on grants. We have 8 grants awards right now, totaling over 5.6 million just in the past 2 years. So I think there's that front end of it, of the application, finding it, being proficient and being able to turn in those grants. And if any of you, and I know a lot of you have worked with grants before, the writing of the grant is just such a technical skill to be able to do. But I also have to compliment Aaron and finance and everybody that once you receive the grant, the administrative side that goes along with it, then to make sure that you do everything to make sure that it moves forward through there. So great job once again by staff. Even with the COVID restrictions that have been going on, I think it would have been easy on some of our areas to slow down, and one of those areas would be hiring. Chief Casantini and the group in HR have done a really good job of adapting our hiring process, whether it be the interview process or the selection process. So just a couple people on the 14th, facility technician Dave Kupaminer was hired and went through that. This week, there was 4 new fire inspector 1s that were hired by the district. Benton Christensen, Chelsea Harlow, Hillary Ingram, and Matt Ringer. We welcome them in, and they're starting their training as inspector 1s with mask on, social distancing, everything in place that needed to be necessary. But also, you know, I think it was 2 meetings ago, or last meeting, Krishana talked about the growth and the development that continues in the district, and our ability to continue that process and bring people on board, I think is great. Also on the 14th, the SRP Academy 20-2 started with 17 recruits. And so myself and the deputies went out there and welcomed that group in. They're behind Station 21, and the same is using the precautions that need to be in place, but also being able to boost our staff to make sure as people have retirement or that we have people that leave our organization, the SRP program is strong and continue on. One of the recruitments and one of the things that has been worked on by Chief Green in operations for a while is about our pilots and our pilot program for the helicopters. Working with 522, we announced an internal pilot career track that was averaged, and we will move forward. One of our challenges truly is pilots, training the pilots, time in the seat, and then the helicopter has such a specialty of making sure not only do we cover today, but much like Jeff has done and Aaron and folks, is that we're looking at what is some long-term sustainable solutions for us as we move forward. A couple meetings of myself and Chief Bartee went up to Butte County, up to the North Complex fire on Friday, went up and saw our members up there. Chief Bridge in his operation report will give more of an update of our folks that are out there. But it's always good to go out and see our members, see them in the field, being able to work, and really just tell them thank you for their time, whether it's 14 or 21 days away from their family. And as always, representing Metro Fire in the best of ways. We continue working on the deployment of our COVID units in support of the county and the CARES money. We had some meetings on behavioral health and the system that we have in place today and supporting our members during the difficult times. I had mentioned what's called the Urban Fire Forum. We had over the last 2 weeks, 2 meetings. The first one was on diversity, equality, and inclusion. The second one was on ET3, which is a ability to deploy additional funding for our EMS system. And it gave us an overview of ET3 and the future of it. And then the second half was women's health and relating to the fire service. Cancer rates, heart rates, mental health, very informative. On the 22nd, we know we have 2 retirements that are coming up with Chief Bridge and Chief Shannon. Myself and the deputies had interviews on the 22nd for deputy chiefs. We went through and did our interviews. We'll continue that process this week. That also will open up some assistant chief positions that we will start moving forward on also. The last thing is just with our EMS and with the system and the demands that were put upon us by the IMSA. We continue to work with our attorneys. We had some very positive meetings with the county and are still in the process of developing our agreements that will move forward in the EMS plan. That ends my report for tonight. Any questions or comments?
Yes, sir. Any questions or comments?
I have a comment if I could.
Sure. Director.
Chief, just tell Chief Shannon and Chief Bridge that they are SOL. We'll lose their paperwork and they can hang a couple more years.
I told them that last year and it worked. Chief Bridge is looking at me right now and I don't know if it's going to work this time around or not.
Thank you.
I don't think so.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a quick comment. I do and always have appreciated senior staff from the fire chief on down. When I have a question, comments, want information, toss around ideas for issues that come before Metro Fire, that everyone has always been very, very responsive, and I greatly appreciate that effort. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, moving on to the operations report. Chief Bridge.
Thanks, President Sheets and board members. Have three topics to cover with you this evening. I wanted to start first with our update on our COVID-19 statistics in regards to our members being on duty. The last 6 weeks, we've not had any positive tests for any of our members, which has been good. This kind of corresponds to with what the national appears to be the national trend. So just a snapshot, when we look back to about a month today, we had about 312 test positive patient contacts that our members out in the field as they respond to the 911 call. 312 test positive patient contacts since the beginning of this COVID thing. Today we're at about 355. So we've only gone up by about 43, 44, whatever that math is there, 43 calls that were test positive patient contacts. That's good news. We're not dealing with as many test positive people out there, which corresponds to the reason why we've not had any of our own members. Plus, we continue to reinforce the PPE wearing, which has been a positive impact to our members. So the good news is currently we have nobody off due to COVID-related incidents, and the numbers continue to drop. When we look at the number of patient contacts, this time last month, about 4 weeks ago, we would have one patient contacts, and that were considered under the alert status from our dispatch. And today we have about 69. The transports have gone from 78 down to 61. So we're having less exposure, is the point is. So I guess the trend is showing true that our COVID-related calls, it appears that things are moving in the proper direction on that. Topic 2, our status, current deployment with our members. We have approximately 21 members out on assignment right now. We're going to probably send out 3 more to assist our neighbors at CAL FIRE up in the Auburn, Colfax area this weekend. We're anticipating a wind event and some north winds, which is red flag type weather coming this weekend, Sunday, Monday type Tuesday area. Temperatures up in the hundreds with some north dry winds. Our neighbors, CAL FIRE, our partners, have been strapped and are been gone. Many of those firefighters have been gone for 2-3 months without seeing their family. So we are going to provide some relief for our partners up there and see if we can't help them out. Of course, those same north winds are going to affect our place, so we're ensuring that our members and our public and our community is safe and protected here as well. So with that 21, that'll probably increase to 24, just to give you a snapshot of what that makeup is. Engine 366 is up in the Camino area of Highway 50. Our Type 3 OES engine 8433. That one out of Station 29 is assigned to the August complex up in the Mendocino Forest. So that totals about 7 of our members. The other 14 members are single resource unit overhead positions that range from the Bear Creek fire all the way to the August complex. So we do, or I'm sorry, the North complex. Our 2 REMS teams are in the North complex. The others are at the Bear Creek. So that's kind of this update on our current strike team. We do have our Type 1 OES engines. That's 8 members. Those engines are currently waiting for redeployment. So we could see another 8 members being reassigned in the near future. Last point that I wanted to bring to your attention is our engineers exam. We started our engineer exam process about a little over a week ago with 29 members that had signed up for that process. 27 were successful in their written exam, which they got invited to the Engineers Academy, which is a 5-day, 40-hour training session with our SMEs, our subject matter experts, and our training division. Training division is currently just finished up day 4 today. Tomorrow's the last and final day. I'll make a visit out there to see how all that's going. For what I've been told so far, that has been very successful. And then they will move on after that to be prepared for phase 2 and phase 3. Phase 2 is the week of October 12th, where they'll do their driving, open road course training and evaluation, and their pre-trip. The pre-trip consists of going through the inner workings of the fire engine and understanding the moving parts of the brakes and all the different pieces of the pump. Phase 3 would be scheduled for the week of October 26th. Last week of October, they will do their pumping evolutions. That will culminate in a list of what we hope to be 27, because that's how many will move on to that process. But it's a competitive process, so we'll see how it goes. But come November 1st, we will be promoting, or right around November 1st, give or take, we'll be communicating with our staffing folks and stuff to identify the date. But early in November, we will be promoting 12 new engineers right off the bat. So that's all exciting news, and that's summarizes my report for tonight. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer any of your questions. So I would turn it back over to President Sheets.
Thank you, Chief Bridge. Any questions or comments? Wonderful, thank you. Moving on to Firefighters Local 522. Mr. McGoldrick, are you on the line?
I am. Can you hear me?
Can, sir.
Good evening, President Sheets and Board of Directors. I don't have much tonight. I just wanted to thank Erin for all her hard work on the grant awards and the acceptance, and to wish Walt White, Director White, a safe return home. That's all I have tonight, unless you have any questions.
Thank you, sir. Any questions or comments for Mr. McGoldrick? All right, we'll move on to committee and delegate reports. The executive committee, we have not met in some time. We do not have a meeting scheduled. Communication Center JPA, Chief Shannon.
Thanks, President Sheets. No report, just an announcement. Was some discussions with Chief Wagaman and executive staff and the board. We have decided and moved on making the Comm Center JPA meetings monthly instead of bi-monthly. So it'll be a little bit of time, get those, they're working hard over there. We'll have a lot of information for you, but we'll start to meet on a monthly basis. And that next meeting will be October 13th at 9 a.m. And a report.
Moving on to California Fire Rescue Training JPA, Chief Shannon.
Thank you again. I do not have a report tonight for the Fire Rescue JPA. I do. We did have a cancellation late last week. Our next meeting will be, actually, we'll make up the meeting Monday, September 28th. I will apologize here. I definitely dropped the ball to get that message to Melissa Pinilla to change the agenda to reflect that. So I apologize to Melissa, but we will be meeting just in a couple days on Monday, the 28th. End of report.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to the Finance and Audit Committee, Director Zali.
The Finance and Audit Committee did not meet, and our next meeting is to be determined.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to Policy and Committee, Director Gould.
Shockingly, no report.
What? All right, we will end with board questions and comments and then move into closed session. Director Jones, we'll start off with you.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate it. Reiterating many things that have already been said in terms or implicated. One is a great congratulations to all the new hires. Best of luck, and really good luck to all on the engineers exam coming up. The kudos again to Jeff Fry, our Economic Development Officer, for a tremendous report. Steve Jordan for the communications effort. That was a very, very informative report on an issue that we all need to keep in mind. So thank you very much for that communication on the communications. And let's see. Hey, grant applicator. Anyway, Aaron Castleberry, thank you so much to you and your team for the grants. It often goes, it needs to be celebrated even more. The grant process for Metro Fire has been very successful, and I have a high degree of confidence it will continue to be successful with your leadership. So thank you to all the staff, and thoughts are always with the folks that are out there day after day, week after week, horrendous circumstances. Thank you for all that work.
Thank you, Director Jones. Director Clark.
Madam Chair, I really, I can't top what Director Jones said. She's basically encapsulated everything that I've basically thought about to comment on. Jeff Fry, Ms. Castleberry, Mr. Jordan, I mean, and a lot of upbeat information. Lose sight of the fact that we have our guys out there, guys and gals out there fighting these fires and putting their life in peril. But that's all I have tonight, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Director Wood.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can't say what's any better than what's already been said and how it's been said. I just do want to add with the heat, just stay hydrated, stay safe, and thank you.
All right, Director Orzali.
I have nothing to add to what's already been said. This is very positive news, and I'm so pleased to be able to work with people like the Metro staff.
Director Gould.
Comment.
Director Sailors.
Like everyone else has said, the staff has done an excellent job, and I'd like to thank everyone for their great presentations. Thank you. Have a great night. Thank you.
Director Kelly.
Once again, the high-performing team of Metro Fire showed their expertise tonight. It was a pleasure. And I just wanted to make everybody aware that there is a national event, Walk to Defeat ALS. The local ALS association was being socially distant conscious, is having everybody do a walk their own way type of thing. So I'll be sailing on the 3rd when everybody else is walking and displaying a flag supporting ALS. It is a fundraiser, so I will post it on my social media and tag everybody that I can think of, and hopefully you guys enjoy a great weekend. And on the 3rd, I'll post pictures and you guys can see the fun we're having.
Wonderful, thank you, sir. So I just wanted to thank everyone for their presentation and to congratulate all the promotions and the new hires and our new single role paramedic recruits. Please stay safe out there for all of our members who are out on deployment and those are being reassigned. And I would like to welcome back Director White. Best wishes for all of the engineers who are going to be taking the exam and in the academy, and stay safe out there. We'll move into closed session.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting.
Everybody, I just want to make sure General Counsel Lavra, are you with us to report out before
Yes.
we? Okay, wonderful. President Sheets, we're good to go.
All right, thank you. We will reconvene to open session. General Counsel, will you please report out?
Yes, thank you, President Sheets. The board met in closed session for public employee and performance evaluation for the fire chief as set forth in closed session agenda. Item number 1, no reportable action was taken. The board also met in a closed session for public employee performance evaluation for the board clerk. Pursuant to item number 2 on the closed session, no reportable action was taken.
Thank you, sir. With that, I will say that we will adjourn this meeting. Our next board meeting is October 8th at 6 p.m. via Zoom. I hope everybody has a good night. Thank you.
Great meeting, Madam Chairwoman.
Good night, everybody.
Excuse me on the 8th. Thank you. All
Hey, Melissa, are you in the office tomorrow?